Hello and welcome to another episode of Where Everybody Has Gone Before. We're here again to talk about more Star Trek as the wheel has dictated. It has given us an episode to watch and we have no control in the matter. We gotta go on a Star Trek based journey. I'm Laura, I'm here with Geoffrey again. How are you doing?
I'm I am baffled, Laura.
Yeah?
I am what a strange course we are charting through Star Trek at the
We
moment.
sure are. I did not know what to make of this Star Trek episode for a lot of this
Well,
viewing.
well it's not just that, it's that like we were locked in like the middle of the 90s era of Star Trek for a while, right? In
Yeah.
season 3 of TNG and then sorry, season 3 of Deep Space 9 and then season 5 of TNG. And then
Mm.
we took a little trip to right to the beginning with the third episode
Yeah.
of TNG. And now here we are right at the end in season 7.
But we're still in that
Harry
TNG
Kim
to
still
Voyager
cannot
window.
handle women.
I am. I'm convinced. I know that this wheel can give us other episodes. I span it a couple of times today just out of curiosity, and it gave me original series, Lower Decks, and Discovery. So it can give us other seasons. But no, we are trapped in the TNG to Voyager bubble, and that is where we shall stay with our episode for this week, which is episode 607 of Star Trek, Voyager Season 7, Episode 3, Drive. Um, an episode that I remember very little of before watching, and that I came away from going, that really feels like it could have been a Deep Space Nine episode.
I mean, there is a whole Deep Space Nine episode which is Cisco and Jake just on a literal boat. Right? It's not even something. They just
Yeah,
make a boat
like,
and go sail in space.
I mean,
So
in as much as,
and it's
like,
kind of like
yeah,
that.
it's one of those episodes that Deep Space Nine has so many of, in that it's like we're doing interpersonal relationships mixed with a little bit of politics, and like the captain is largely interested in how do we make all of the people who sort of share the space around us have a good time. It's not really our problem, but we'll get ourselves involved. Very Deep Space Nine-ly.
Yeah, and with no one who was involved with Deep Space Nine involved, right? Because I
Yeah.
think this is like my memory is that someone like Ronald D. Moore wasn't really on Voyager. It was Brian Fuller,
Hmm.
right? And yet I look at the Delta Flyer, which is going to be the
Yeah.
fulcrum of this episode. And I just sit there and look at it and go, that's just the spy ship from Battlestar Galactica, right? They
Yeah.
just made their own ship, but seemingly just because they wanted to, as opposed to say Battlestar
and
Galactica, where there's a huge emotional payoff.
hmm,
It's just we feel like making a ship that's going to be better than our normal
yeah.
shuttles.
And look, I enjoyed this episode a lot. It's just an episode that like surprises me with its placement, because considering how close we are to the end of Voyager at this point, this is an episode that if you'd asked me to guess what season of Voyager this was in, I'd have known it had to be late enough that Seven of Nine was around, but I don't think I'd have gone for final season.
So, as you know, I don't know a great deal about Voyager
Mm,
because I haven't watched it in a decade, and even
yeah.
then, I've only seen it twice. Even I would assume that in season 7, the stakes are going to be slightly higher than whatever this is. Like,
I had to flick through season 7. Most of season 7 is quite high stakes. This is a weird little island of character building calm. And I guess it's here because it's largely an episode that's trying to put a neat little bow on the Tom and Bellanah relationship arc. And it's like, look, that's one of the things we got to tick off before the final season is done. Um, it it almost feels weird to me, both that it is this late in the show, but also that it's not later in this season. Like, that feels like a thing you do, like the last episode you do before it kicks into full gear for like your final little arc, is you wrap up some quiet little character arcs.
well, I mean, they only really wrap up one, right? Because
Yeah.
it's only really Tom and Balana. Everyone else just kind of pops in for a bit.
Yeah.
You know, the captain's Janeway's barely there. Like Kate Mulgrew is good enough that you feel like she's there
Yeah.
a bit more. Chakotay just, I think, pops up for like a couple of lines,
Yeah,
and then the
Tuvok
doctor's there.
appears for like
Neelix,
2
yeah,
lines. Yeah.
he's there to be all like, oh, shouldn't we be doing some science? And then
Yeah.
Neelix is there, and then Seven of Nine is briefly there, and then like they just pop in, and they
Yeah.
have no real impact on the episode.
This is
So there's still
largely a
plenty to sort out, but
yeah, this is largely a relationship drama between two people not properly communicating their feelings,
oh
being
mate,
put in like a they do frustrate me many times throughout this episode. I am too autistic for the way that they handle their relationship.
just so obviously this is how so much like media conflict emerges.
Yeah.
It's just fucking talk to each other. Stop with the
I
I just communicate.
mm,
Stop communicate. Like there's a bit where we'll get to like the
yeah.
rundown of the episode and everything, but there's a bit where Neelix is saying to Bellanah, why aren't you saying this to Tom? And I'm like sitting
Yes.
and I'm not engaged with this episode that much, and I'm going like, yes, why the fuck are you not telling
I
your boyfriend this?
I
Why are you
love
telling the cook?
I love Neelix as a character, and so many people who watch Voyager cannot stand Neelix. This is a great episode for why I like Neelix, because Neelix is the kind of character that will just bluntly point out the sitcom tropes you are falling into and go, yeah, maybe don't do that. Because he not only points out, like, you should just be talking to your boyfriend and not me about this, but he points out as well the, like, rather than tell Tom that you're upset he's doing this race, you're going to wait until the race is over and, like, to a point where he can't, like, go, oh, you've told me how you feel, I'll do something different. You're going to wait until it's impossible for him to undo it and then tell him you're upset about the race. And I was like, yeah, Neelix, you're right. Hell yeah.
Again, like going purely on memory, my memory of Neelix is he's basically Guinan from TNG, but more present. Like he's that kind of
Yeah.
like emotional heart around which everything orbits. My memory of not liking Neelix is I didn't really like the whole Neelix and Kez stuff, and that always
Neelix
felt a
and
bit weird.
Neelix
Like
in
he always felt a bit
yeah.
pushy about that stuff.
In
But
season
Neelix as a
one,
character was kind of neat.
yeah. In season one, Neelix and Cass is a little bit so, and season one Neelix is also a little bit. He's a little bit the like the comic relief you put the pratfalls on. But like by the time you get to like season two onwards, he really does settle down into. I do think Guinan is a relatively reasonable comparison point. Um, but yeah, this episode basically boils down to, oh, we're gonna do street racing in space because there's politics happening in this bit of space, and doing essentially like the Olympics, doing a sport thing that everyone comes together on will sort all political tensions, which, as we know from the real world, if you put all the countries in one competition, regardless of any existing tensions that might exist, that solves all political problems.
Yeah,
Um,
right. Sport diffuses all tension.
exactly.
Right? There is never any there is never any heated conversation, aggression, or violence at any sporting event in the
No.
history of humanity.
And the results of a sporting event are never used as an excuse to foment violence or anger in the streets or anything of that nature. So yeah, they
Can
this
I can I just can I
mm,
just ask a question?
yeah,
So this episode is from the year 2000.
yeah.
The Fast and the Furious released in 2001.
Yeah.
Is there a potential here that somebody, I don't know who wrote Fast and the Furious, but that watched this episode went, I wonder if this would be pretty good with cars.
It's
Like
it's certainly of an era.
because that was my initial
Yeah.
question. Was like, okay, did this come out after the Fast and the Furious? Because like
Yeah.
this is either the Fast and the Furious in space, which I think we've already had actually since we've
Hmm.
had space Fast and Furious, or it's pod racing in Star Trek. There was some sort of
Yeah.
I couldn't work out the impetus for this
There
particular
is
idea.
some nexus of illicit street racing happening around this time.
But this isn't this kind of also what Tom's like? Doesn't he have like a
Yeah.
chimera or somebody? He's like a really kind of old school greaser kind of character who's always
Yeah.
getting involved in hijinks that are basically this is what someone would do in the 50s,
Yeah.
but transplanted
He
to.
wants to do some tinkering and prove that like he's the best behind the wheel with his slightly souped out weird vehicle.
Yeah, because like right at the beginning of the episode, so they're obviously like test flying the Delta Flyer, which is
Yeah.
a kind of crummy name, but it's also fine because it's 90s to 2000s Star
Yeah.
Trek. And like there's a lot of really nerdy car stuff going on, right? It's
Yes.
like, yeah, these new impulse engines.
Oh,
And it's like,
I tuned those motors up so we can do like a little
yeah.
sideways turn in it and dodge around the
And also Harry
asteroid.
Kim's getting like involved in it as well. He's like proper. I don't remember him
He's
being this into
he's
like
really
engineering
trying to be
stuff, but
like the rally car second driver with the checklist that you read out to like give directions.
yeah, which I've never been able to work out how that works because like surely you're going so fast that you're not. And they're traveling like thousands of kilometers like a minute, aren't they? Or something like that.
Yeah, but
Like,
it's a much longer track, so you got longer to
yeah.
tell them, I guess. Yeah, so this other ship pulls up and basically just goes, "Hello, I'm a woman. Would you like a street race through space? Oh no, my ship blew up a little bit. Please rescue me." Anyway, come enter a tournament that will require you to completely refit your new ship. You know that new ship you're so proud of that you've put all this work into making the Delta Flyer and you've barely had any chance for it to be the ship it is? Yeah, refit it to fit our weird space race specifications.
Yeah, but like you don't understand because like this is the ultimate test, right? The look on Tom Paris's
Ultimate
face when he's like,
test.
"This is the ultimate test. All we have to do is have like an ion converter or something." And it's like
I,
it's such a weird setup in the like. At no
yeah,
point do they know this person's coming. It's just suddenly, oh, there's a ship. Oh, they're
I,
scanning
I
us.
do.
Oh, it's a lady.
I do genuinely love Tom and Kim doing their like little sales pitch to the bridge crew and how easily Janeway is won over, because I do think this is one of the things that really sets Janeway, like, it's one of the things that sets Janeway apart as a captain is that because she is so trapped away from Starfleet and like I've got to keep this crew happy with no real sense of how long this mission's gonna go before they can go home. There does have to be a certain degree of, if the thing might be fun, sometimes I have to say yes to that to keep this crew from losing their minds. And this one seems harmless. Sure, go do a little space race. Um, she instantly does jump to like, yeah, no, if this is gonna like improve, it's gonna make us some friends in this bit of space, you know. Why not go refit the ship we just designed and have a little space race?
I did really like the sudden jump from Irina, who's the alien, who's just basically a lady with pointy ears because she's like supposed to be the hot one. Uh, Coming onto the ship, they're doing repairs, and suddenly they're standing in front of a screen. Like, here's our pitch for racing, and it had
Yeah,
like big prestige worldwide vibes from
yeah.
Step Brothers.
Well, that's it.
uh,
It's they're so proud of it, and it does have like
they're
mum.
thrilled, aren't they?
It's got the vibes of, okay, mum's going to agree to put your picture on the fridge. Like the captain is like, okay, this clearly matters to you, and we're not in a rush. We're still millions of miles from home. Go on, have a little race in the garden with your friends.
Well, to be fair, they are like in their seventh year in the
Well,
Gamma
yeah,
Quadrant, right?
that's
So
the thing. It's
I can
yeah,
it's silly, but I can also completely understand why
no,
Janeway would be sitting there going like, no, this is an opportunity just to
no.
kick back a bit. And
And I maintain that is one of the most interesting differences with how they write Janeway compared to the other captains, is that she does have in the back of her mind constantly this, I have to make sure that occasionally we do stuff that is not entirely serious. Because, like, for all we know, the next 30 years of your life are still going to be out here in space. We are still decades from home. This has to be a marathon rather than a sprint. And sometimes that means, sure, go do a space race. So yeah, we've kind of skimmed over this a little bit, but there's another thread bubbling up in this early section, which is Bellanah is running around the ship trying to do favors for people to get favors in return. Because she's like, I'm trying to book 2 entire days, a whole weekend, where the only use of the holodeck is for me and Tom. No disruptions, no interruptions. We're gonna go to a holographic resort and have a romantic weekend for just the two of us. So Doctor, please cancel your golfing trip and don't invite yourself as a third onto our sexy weekend just because the Holo Resort also has golf. We don't want you there, even if you do say that you look good in a swimsuit.
Yeah, that whole sequence was one of my favorite.
It was
Of just
really fun.
firstly learning that the Doctor is into golf,
Yeah.
which I don't remember at all. I don't know if that's come up before, but it's suddenly I'm into golf. And
He.
secondly, him going, okay, you've explained to me very clearly that you want a secluded,
Yeah.
romantic weekend with your boyfriend. It's been way too long. You've been struggling to spend time together. What if I come along because there's golf? But wait, also I'll be in a swimsuit. So it's not even just I will stay out of your hair in this holographic
Right? It
environment.
does seem like he's trying to
However that
invite
works.
himself as a third on the holiday.
Yeah, it's fully. I'll go play some golf and then I'll turn up at the pool with you guys. Wouldn't that be
Yeah.
fun?
It'll be chill. Don't worry about it. It'll be fine. Um, Around this time, one of my favorite stupid details of this episode is we get a look inside the woman. What did you say her name was? That's the other woman in the
Arena.
race, Arena.
Yeah.
We get a look inside her ship, and I love that, like, color theme and design wise, it looks like the inside of like a roller coaster at Disney for children to pretend they're on a spaceship. Like, it's all red and yellow and very padded. It looks like you would have like a McDonald's play place almost ship interior. It looks so silly compared to anything else
Right.
in
And
Star Trek.
it feels very generic sci-fi, don't they? That
It
big blue screen.
yeah.
It's like bronze or
It
brown. It's
it
such a
feels
sticky color.
it feels like
Um,
they had a spaceship from some other set somewhere on the back lot and were like, yeah, this'll do.
I don't know if you remember like McDonald's in the 90s because
Yeah.
I used to go there all the time. There was a there was a kind of taupe beige color to its tables, right? And
Yeah.
that's what it reminded me of. There's just that really grotty,
Yeah.
like formica brown that
Yeah.
all fast food restaurants seem to have, but especially McDonald's. It just looked like a booth from McDonald's.
Yes.
And I like it. I'm into it. It's like, yeah, that's exotic.
Yeah. It certainly gives it a memorable design, compared to basically any
Well,
other
we're
Star
talking
Trek
about
ship
it.
interior. Yeah. Uh, while we're in here, Harry is really insistent on
Oh,
flirting.
mate.
He spends so much of
God,
this
just
episode awkwardly flirting.
I think I preferred him somersaulting away from women to actually flirting with them. It is so awkward.
I
He is so,
appreciate I
like
appreciate how it's not landing though. Like, he keeps trying to hit on her, and I've written down she says, "Are you always this inquisitive?"
I just the Doctor had more chemistry with like his weird cat ball golf balls than Harry Kim has ever had to a woman in this series.
Yes.
And I do appreciate that at some point Tom acknowledges that it's weird how bad he is with women and how they all seem
Yes.
to turn out to be something like it's
Yes.
something like well at least it's not a hologram or
Or a
dead
Borg.
or a Borg. It's like I am missing some context here, and yet I can perfectly believe that Harry
Yeah.
Kim has struck out with all of those things.
The fact that Island of the Planet of the Nymphomaniacs who fuck you into a corpse didn't make the shortlist of bad sexual experiences that Harry Kim has had should tell you a lot about the character.
But he didn't have a sexual experience, did he? Because he was running
Oh,
away
he was
from them. He
desperately
was
trying to
literally
avoid one.
stalking away from these ladies. But yeah, oh, it's so, and like she's clearly somewhat receptive to it, but
Hmm.
there's an element of it. She's humoring him because he is so bad at it, and he's
Yes.
so. Oh, it's not even cringe because cringe is forgivable, right? Cringe is just like,
Yeah.
oh, it's just I don't know whether I appreciate that Harry Kim is not supposed to be like
Hmm.
kind of Lothario like
Yeah.
Tom, and that's why he and Tom are friends, and that's the kind of the funny dynamic. I just there's something else there, and I don't know whether it's just
Yeah.
Garrett Wang's acting or it's just like a complete lack of chemistry with everybody.
I think part of it as well, and this is jumping ahead obviously a little in the episode, but I think you're right that like it is his efforts are meant to be a little bit pathetic so that you get a sense early on that she is humoring him because she needs him to say yes and enter this tournament and to think to be invested enough that he'll, pitch it to the rest of the bridge crew, for example, because that is important to the plan she's working on. So, like, this
Yeah,
is very much humoring a man who is not good at flirting and having to
and we'll
bite
get to
her
that a bit.
tongue while he
Yeah,
asks too many questions.
and we'll get to that plan a little bit more because I do think it's actually, though it's telegraphed, is actually handled really well
I
in not
agree,
being
yeah.
too obvious. But question: we're 7 years in. The ship's probably got all sorts of issues that they're having. Why do you bother with sensors anymore? Just stick Harry Kim on the bridge and say, Harry, do you feel like smashing anything at the moment? Are you a bit horny? And if he says yes, you know you're in trouble, right? You know that there's a woman out there who is about to try and kill everybody. Because I feel like that's all that happens to Harry Kim is that he's either someone's trying to seduce him or he's trying to flirt with them and they're always trying to kill everybody. Like, just Harry, mate.
He is he does gravitate toward these things.
I get it. Look, I you know, not to reveal too much about my person, but like a lot of my relationships have been driven by me being drawn to terrible people. Like my type tends to be, okay, will this Korean lady murder me? That sounds great. So I'm right there with him, right? But
Yeah.
I don't know. There's something about the way he acts that I don't know whether I
Yeah.
feel sorry for him or I just want to blow him out of an airlock or
I at times do feel like that would be in his best interests.
yeah.
But yeah, this is where we get into the relationship plot because obviously Tom is very excited about his getting ready for his big space race, and Bellanah, there's some wires crossed. She thinks he's excited for the romantic weekend. Oh no, can't do that. Um, I am gonna be very critical of the way that Bellanah handles this whole situation because she jumps out the way of so many opportunities to have a healthy conversation about this. Like, this is not just regular sitcom levels of dodging the conversation. She really doubles down on, I will not give Tom an opportunity to know that I am upset or to act upon those feelings. Like, basically, like, I'll criticize Tom a little at the start here. When he first, like, realizes, oh, I've double booked myself, he is a little shitty in that he doesn't make any secret of the fact that while he could prioritize the weekend with Balana that he's already planned, he really wants her to say, no, it's okay, go do the race. He keeps emphasizing, like, oh, it would be so great for the crew and the captain and the morale and for the intergalactic diplomacy. And it's not just because I want to do it. Like, I think this is his big problem, is that he, like, goes, oh, no, I can cancel it and spend the weekend with you, but also, like, here's a bunch of reasons that make it sound like I'm really selfless for wanting to go do the race. So, like, he does put her in a position where it's gonna be hard for her to say, no, we made these plans, it's gonna be hurtful if you back out of them. But she does in this first conversation about 7 or 8 times say, it is okay to cancel these weekend plans we had and go do the race. That's okay. That's okay. You have permission. I won't be upset if you go do that. And her whole plan is to afterwards go, actually, I was quite upset that you did that. You can't say it's okay to do it and then afterwards go, I know I told you multiple times it was okay. It was secretly not, and now you're in the wrong.
Yeah, so when Arena turns up,
Mm.
Tom has a reaction, right? And so I'm thinking, okay, so the conflict here is going to be he wants to do this race and there's a woman involved. And it turns out he's hornier for the race than he is for
Oh, a
this
million
this
percent,
woman.
yeah.
And so I'm so prepared to be like, Tom's going to be the problem here. Balana's going
Yeah.
to be on the right side of it. He rocks up and he's kind of manipulative in the way, like as you say,
Mm.
he says, oh, you know what? No, I don't have to do this race. I mean, it would be really
It
good for the
Yeah,
crew,
it would be
and it's
so
really
good
important.
for
But
diplomacy and politics, but like I could cancel it.
and like at that point, Balana could just say, "Look, I know what you're doing.
Yeah,
Let's just have a frank conversation with this. We've
yeah,
been to apparently at this point they've been together for several years. We've been
yeah,
together for several years. We are more mature than this."
yes,
And she doesn't. And
and
it's
yeah,
infuriating.
and
And as you say, it's over. And Tom gives her so many opportunities just to
mm,
say, you know what, we need to talk further about this
yeah,
outside of engineering. And
yes,
she just doesn't. And she chooses just to kind of hold it in and then kind of preemptively hold that over him of, well, once
yeah,
he's finished, I'm going to really, I'm going to break up with him. We don't
mm,
work together. And okay, I get that she's half Klingon, a bit Klingon,
yeah, yeah,
and but that I don't think that's. I think the whole
yeah.
thing about Klingon women is they're so forthright, and she is the exact opposite. I'm not saying Tom isn't at fault. I think they're both wrong, but holy fuck, just have a fucking conversation. Like Neelix is
Yeah.
spot on.
Yes. And I will admit, I am probably a bit more negative on Balana's actions here, just because I've been in this situation personally, without going too much into my own life. I've been in a situation with an ex once where, after multiple hours on the phone with them, like, they were having a bad day. I was on the phone for multiple hours, and it was like, I do have a scheduled going out this evening. Is it okay if I go, or do you want me to stay home and stay on the phone? And they were like, no, 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 it's fine, go out. 5 minutes later, they're on Facebook going, I can't believe that she abandoned me. I'm like, there are a few things that annoy me more than a no, 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 it's okay to go do the thing you want to do. Actually, secretly, you should have known that it was it wasn't okay to go. And I'm like, it it does annoy me, but I'm glad that Neelix points it out as well because
Oh yeah,
yeah,
and
because the way she points it out is like, I don't want to spoil the race for him. You're gonna spoil the race for him anyway. He's gonna finish the
yeah.
race and be like, I'm so glad I won. And she's gonna go, yeah, well, that cost your relationship. We're not together anymore. And he's forever gonna remember the race spoiled as like the race I lost my girlfriend over.
I mean, you say all that, and again, I don't want to skip too far ahead, but it takes on a slightly different dynamic when you know what's going to happen to the Delta Flyer,
Yeah,
especially if Balan, okay, well, no spoilers, but Balana's not there.
yeah,
Like, so I really like that Neelix just kind of insinuates himself into that. It's not even like,
yeah.
oh, Neelix, I need someone to talk to. It's like Neelix is like, no, I'm not letting
Well,
you just
he he
bum out
he
here.
fakes an injury to have an excuse to
Yeah,
come sit next to her to be like, no,
yeah,
I can see you're doing some nonsense. I'm coming over, and that did make me chuckle.
yeah. And I think again, I think he when she's saying, oh, we don't work together. It's probably the end, and this is why. And he just sits there and flat out says, why are you not telling Tom this?
Yeah,
He's just absolutely right. And it's again, and I do appreciate that this very cliched conflict catalyst that we
mm,
see in TV of people just refuse to communicate like human beings
yeah,
is being called
and,
out. I also appreciate that the Doctor is fucking rubbish at golf.
yes,
Okay, granted, that carpet isn't regulation,
yeah.
but like he is like 2 yards away from that cup.
Yeah. Well, that's why he wants to go on a golf holiday to get some practice in. Um, Oh,
Oh,
there is one other
yeah.
Neelix thing I want to throw in quickly, which is I like that he appeals to the Klingon aspect of Balara with the keeping Tom in the dark doesn't seem very honorable. Like he's trying to be creative with how he gets through. He's not giving up just because she's like, no, I've decided I'm going to be a bit shit about this.
Well, I think that kind of also leads into what I said earlier. Is I don't think the way she's acting is very Klingon, even though I think she frames it that way several times.
Hmm.
Um, every Klingon woman we meet in the show is like right out, super forthright. Even Dax, because obviously she's, but been hanging around Klingons in a
Yeah,
past life, always really upfront. And so like it's all excuses with B'Elanna, and it's actually really
yeah,
frustrating. And I do like the move she makes in that, which is like, okay,
yeah,
maybe the race is how we spend time together. But I do also want to just get back a little bit. So we've got this fun episode of a race.
yeah.
but we also have to have like some sort of political intrigue, and so the
Yes.
ambassador comes up, and then so he gets his message, and Jane was like, "Put it through here," and then she and Chakotay just stand to the side, having listening in,
Yeah.
and then just insinuate themselves into some galactic politics because, like, well, I guess we should do something meaningful here that isn't just we're having a race.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's a really I think all of this setup is done quite well, despite the fact I'm not usually a fan of Voyager. I think the parallels of he's doing the race stuff, she's going around getting all of the holodeck hours, and then it coming together in a really awkward way, as much as it
Yeah.
infuriates me, does work.
Yeah. And
And I think it
again,
does set up the. Sorry, go
yeah.
on.
No, go ahead.
Well, I think it does set up quite nicely the fact that I think they're probably both quite annoyed, and then they come together on the ship, right? And so
Agreed.
Irina's ship is fixed. They have a little party, and they all have spacesuits for no reason that are exactly the same as their usual uniforms, but white, like
Yeah.
racing white.
We get to meet some of the
Which
other
are
races, like Mystery Man who just stares broodingly out a window and doesn't like talking to people.
yeah, angry blue guy, and then the Arena's co-pilot who may or may not be cock blocking Harry Kim, even though Harry Kim is perpetually cock blocking himself.
Oh, yeah.
And so Harry Kim gets really depressed because she's hugging another dude. It's like, Harry, mate, like you just gotta relax. You
Yeah.
gotta stop.
Mm-hmm.
And then when is it that B'Elanna's talk? It must be later, but I swear like B'Elanna at some point is just going, oh wow, they could really have a future. I'm like, they've just met, and it's Harry Kim. You've known him for 7 years. You know he has no future with women.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
so like it's all set up that
Yeah.
we meet the three races we're going to care about. That it's a big symposium for a bunch of planets that have been at war for forever. So this is the first like intergalactic Olympics,
We
and then B'Elanna shows up on the Delta Flyer, and Tom looks genuinely pissed off.
Yeah, and like to a degree I can understand it because like it's very clear he has a rhythm and a routine and like a practiced thing with Harry Kim, and the two of them are like equally invested in like they've done the practice, they've done the reading, they've got the plan, they've got the routine, and like the way Tom is going to behave in the ship isn't going to upset Harry because like it's very clear he's got a vibe as captain, as pilot, and he knows I don't want to do this vibe with my girlfriend because I know it's going to rub her the wrong way, but this is how I am in the ship, and
Yeah, it's
I
very.
don't want her to
I
get annoyed
don't want
about
to.
it.
Yeah, I don't want my girlfriend to see this side of me, which I think all of us can relate to when it
It's
comes to some sort of fixation we have.
I remember having a conversation with a man at a party once who was like, "My girlfriend likes video games, but I don't want to play co-op video games with her because I don't want her to see what I'm like when I play video games." And I'm like, I don't, I can't empathize with that, but that did come to mind with how Tom is in this ship. Like, I don't
Yeah,
want you to see
like
me in pilot mode.
I can empathize with that, but in a I'm 35 way, in that I never want a woman I'm interested in to play Monopoly with me because I am insufferable when I play Monopoly, and it turns out I'm pretty good at Monopoly,
Yeah.
but I'm just really ruthless and unpleasant. So like, I get
I
it.
mean, that's the only way to
I
be good at that game is to be an absolute fucking bastard about it.
well, look, you don't become a major magnet in fake London by being
Yeah.
meek, Laura.
Yeah, you gotta be strict with the rules. Money doesn't go onto free parking for half the things people allege it does. Um, you gotta remember to do the auction rule and be outbidding people by a single dollar to steal their properties from them. You gotta be ruthless.
And also, no one else is allowed to be banker but me
Yeah.
because I do not trust anyone else not to. Anyway,
uh, there.
beyond that, but I can get why Tom might be
Yeah.
a bit shit. This is not
Yeah.
great for me that my girlfriend has rocked up to
Mm.
this one thing I'm very, very good at, but also quite unpleasant to other people about.
Yeah. It's I can understand. I'm glad you want to spend time with me. I don't want I want to keep certain parts of my life separate, and I don't want this to be weird. We did
Which I
skip.
also think is healthy. By the way,
Yeah, yeah.
I don't think he's unjustified in that
No,
reaction. But again, like I think again, and not to be too, wow, Tom's really in the right in a lot of places here. Like he does very quickly go, okay, I
yeah,
can see how this is a sensible compromise to our current
yeah.
issue,
He
even if it bubbles
he
up again.
he is very quick to adjust to. I can see the benefits of this, and I'm not going to fight. This does because I think he knows to a degree. I did fuck up by double booking this weekend. Sure, this is probably the right way to deal with this.
But he does admit that as well. Like
Yeah,
yeah, again, he's being a bit manipulative at the beginning, but he does admit, oh shit, no, I'm really sorry. I should have remembered, right? And it's
yeah,
like, yeah, that's
yeah.
exactly the right thing to say, and she completely ignores it because
I.
she's just
Hmm.
being really annoying. But
Before we go too much further, there's one joke around this time that I love. It is one of my favorite lines in this whole episode. It is an exchange between Bellanah and Seven of Nine. And I love when Seven of Nine gets little opportunities to do humor because she's got a lot of that dryness of say Data from TNG, but with like the little knowing smirk of she's allowed to be aware she's being funny. And it's the everyone's coming down with race fever. Perhaps you could convince the doctor to create an antidote. I'm like, that's great. That's there's for an episode that has so little for the supporting cast to do. That's one of my two things I really like from the supporting cast. It's that and Neelix the commentator that comes up in a little bit are my bright spots for the rest of the crew in this episode.
yeah, and here's where I'm going to inject my drive by onto Picard. I do really, it does kind of annoy me that Seven of Nine lost that kind of arch sense of humor
Yeah,
in Picard a bit. Like she wasn't quite because my read of Seven of Nine is that she does act a bit data-ish, but she knows
yeah,
exactly what she's doing. And like as she develops after being a Borg for so long, she is aware that she can get away with being like just a little bit off kilter because everyone's just like, well, Seven of Nine is basically autistic, so she's going to
yeah,
communicate a bit differently. And and I think this is one of those moments, right, where she's already said, oh, it will be very important for my relationship with uh,
yeah.
Lieutenant Paris
I,
to plot out this course,
yeah.
and B'Elanna's all jealous and like Seven Nine's like, yeah, I got you now.
I
Yeah.
I wrote this bit down because to me it really is the bit that separates her from Data. Is I initially found the activity frivolous, but then I realized it's important for morale and my relationship with Lieutenant Paris. I work with him on navigation. I found that if I embrace some of his interests, we're able to function more effectively as crewmates. It's the there's still that analytical dry. I'm doing this for a very sort of performative, like there is an end goal purpose, but she's much better able than Data to recognize without prompting social interaction can be a valid part of the formula of the very data driven thing you're trying to do. And that's a thing that I think is always like separated out how she's written and performed.
She also doesn't she say in that same speech, oh, he's a very erratic character,
Yeah.
and it's like, mate, you get it, like because Data wouldn't
Yeah.
pick up on that stuff. He might say something like that, but it would be like Data driven. Boy, she's just like, no, this dude's a fucking mess. He's just like
Yeah.
Tom Paris himbo is actually quite
She
difficult to
she
pin
she
down.
she reads the social interactions very easily, even if she has a very dry perspective on them.
Which is also why, which is also why Neelix rocks up and is like, 7 and 9, you are too boring to announce the results of this race. Get out of the way, because I'm basically the closest thing we have to Greg Proops on this ship,
Yeah.
and so I'm going to do like the Star Wars announcer stuff. And
He does great.
it's does he like
I
I've never listened to commentary of
He's got
racing,
the
but
energy and cadence of commentary. As someone who is, I've done a wrestling commentary a couple of times in my life, and the secret to commentary is just keep confidently talking very excitedly. It doesn't really matter that much what you're saying word to word. You just got to get the listeners to be like, "Oh, yeah, that's what's happening." You've got to be the wave that keeps the energy with them, and he's very good at like jumping into that patter.
I do like that we've got this, this galactic event, right?
Mm.
So I think it's 4 cultures, four planets, but there's loads of other
Yes.
ships there. But
Yeah.
and the only way they have to track that is through like a 3D visualization of sensors. Like you think they'd in the 24th century they'd have some sort of, you know, closed circuit television of some description in that wormhole where you could actually watch what's happening rather than crowding around Neelix
No, because we need the
commentating
mystery of
on a
they've. We need the mystery of they've gone in a tunnel and we don't know what's happening in the tunnel. That's important for racing.
Well, okay. So we've I think we've been a bit all over the place with how we've
Yeah,
gone through, but I think we've reached that point, right, where we're kind of we're at the midpoint of the race. They've gone
yeah,
into the tunnel, and there's an where's my camera?
yeah.
Accident.
Oh,
Um, so they have to stop, right? So they get
yes,
again, I don't know anything about racing. Whatever the flag is, they put out to
yeah.
make you stop racing, and they all come back to Voyager.
I
And
respect the
the
fact that they're all
lady,
willing to just be like, park your cars where they are, and we'll come back to them.
yeah,
We'll start the race from where you parked.
they're in a wormhole, and it's just like shut down
Yeah,
your engines. It's like, oh, I don't. Is that what you're supposed to do in a wormhole?
that'll be
I don't
fine.
know, but like, surely you just say, okay, guys, you got to go turn around, not just stop wait. But
Yeah.
and then we're starting to see the hints that something's a bit untoward, right? Because Irina's just basically like the blue guy who everyone dislikes, clearly just messed up my ship, and now my not boyfriend is in the sick bay because
Yeah.
his screen
all all
conveniently blew
all
up.
the political dissidents are trying to ruin the this nice thing we got going on. The isolationists, the terrorists. Some groups don't like unity. Not Arena. Arena loves unity. But some other people don't like unity, so it's probably them.
And also, this is the bit where I really didn't like Tom because like
Yeah,
Balana's like this is what we're gonna do. I'm gonna do some doodads with the shields, and that means we're going to repel these ships and we're going to be able to push past. And Tom's like, I'm the pilot, like proper like
yeah.
Captain Phillips. I'm the pilot now, and it's
And, I will
for all
agree.
I've
He gets
supported
ins.
Tom through this.
Yeah, he does get
It's so wrong.
insufferable after this. His
Yeah,
whole like patronizingly making Balana repeat like little nursery rhyme, little rhyming couplets to be like, and do you remember what we're doing on the ship? And then the one that doesn't even rhyme, that's like, I'm the captain, don't touch the controls. I didn't
no,
make a
well,
rhyme
it's
for
just
that
like,
one, I'm just
yeah,
telling you
he's
what to
like,
do.
repeat after me. I am not the pilot, and I won't try and fly the ship. I'm like, fucking hell, Tom, that's a bit harsh. And
It's
like,
particularly harsh
she's
because she was
aware.
right. She did a maneuver that definitely helped.
Yeah, like the maneuver was fine, but also when there was a hint that they might have actually caused the accident, which they
Yeah,
didn't, she was genuinely like
yeah,
she looked genuinely horrified that she might have caused
yeah.
something, some sort of injury. And like the way he rubs that in her
Oh
face,
god,
I'm just
yeah.
like, you know what? I don't think either of you are right for each other. I think you're actually correct about that.
Look. I
But
am glad that she actually does make the attempt to her coming to be on the ship with Tom. I'm glad that she doesn't just go, I'm going to stew about this quietly, and then break up with him after. That she does give it that shot of like, I'm going to try and do a thing to work on this relationship rather than just throw it out the window. But like, yeah, Tom doesn't make it easy, and I don't doubt that some of that is probably him going. You invited, you told me I was all right to do the race, and then kind of invited yourself onto it, making it clear that you weren't actually okay with me being in the race, and now you've touched the controls and I'm feeling a bit prickly. But like, it is ultimately the two of you need to just have a conversation because you're clearly both dealing with things you're not expressing.
yeah, and I do appreciate that you have that moment so that when Balana does finally start to have that conversation, it has a catalyst. It's not just, okay, I'm here to sabotage your nice fun race. It's like,
Mm.
no, actually, you've been a real prick, Tom. And so this stuff does have to come out now. But before we get there, Harry's been off in the corner somewhere being sad because,
I
Irina's been
want to talk
hugging
to the
people.
girl more.
Yeah. And then he rocks up in the corridor. And I swear he's saying stuff like, "Oh, you can't turn me down. You can't say, I'm the only way you can get back into this race." And it's like, yeah, Harry, like that, whatever vibe you seem to be picking up is light years out. Like
Yeah.
you are nowhere near the vibe here, because like,
Proximity and necessity are not a good basis to build a relationship on.
yeah, and like I just he baffles me, Laura. I don't think any other TV
He,
character has baffled me in the way
he's
Harry
a
Kim does.
really infrequent part of Voyager. He's so rarely relevant to any episode. He's usually a face in the background who says nothing, and we've rolled the two of the most Harry Kim centric episodes possible.
Like the two on different ends of the Harry Kim and women spectrum as well.
Yeah,
Of in one he's somersaulting to get away from women. In this one he's almost somersaulting to get like near to a woman, and both with pretty much the same results.
yeah.
But he becomes the co-pilot. He gets his little white shoulders,
Ooh.
and then they're like second or something behind the Delta Flyer, and
Yeah,
yet this lady cannot wait to get out of this race. She keeps like,
yeah,
"Oh, there's a problem, but my ship's built different, so you won't be able to fix it." And he's like, "Oh,
yeah.
that's," and because he's clueless as well, he's like, "Oh, hang on, no, we'll be fine. Oh wait, oh no, wait, my screen's going to blow up." And it's
Yeah, he's
I
he's
just
smart enough to recognize that none of what she says makes sense, but not smart enough to go, something's up here that you keep saying things that don't make sense. He's just like, that don't make sense. Anyway. Do, do, do,
yeah,
do, do.
ladies don't lie.
Oh.
Ladies
Not
don't
ones I
lie.
like.
It's just
Oh
just
yeah.
it's one of those things, and much as I complain about the people don't talk and that's how you get conflict, I think this one's worse. I think Harry Kim is being clueless is actually the worst way that conflict appears in this episode. And then his line read of "What the
Oh,
hell is going on
I'm so
here?"
glad you wrote it down. I also had it written down with weird capitalization. What the hell is going on?
Yeah,
It's a bad line read.
nice read, Garrett. And then it's like it's all like that. I'm reticent to be too harsh to Garrett Wang.
Yeah.
He's a terrible actor, but for all I know, he's a lovely dude. But every line read that he has to inject emotion into falls so flat. And that's just the zenith of it. The what the hell is going on here? Yeah, it's
Mm.
every single time he has to raise his voice, has to just be a little bit emotional. He can't do it. There's just nothing there, and it's really awkward because the lady who plays Irina is a perfectly serviceable actress, and she's having to work off like this plank of wood that's standing in front of her.
Yeah,
It's
she's
so
really trying
awkward.
her best to give her like whole species should are better separated little monologue, her like big villain moment. She's really got nothing to work with.
Yeah, and she's like, "Oh, who's winning out of the two people that are left?" And he's like, "Oh, I bet you'd like to know." It's like Jesus, like you are giving her nothing. Like, it's
Yeah.
like which I think kind of I forget who plays Tom Paris, but I think kind of suggests that Tom Paris's actor is better than he's maybe given credit for because he
Oh
has to spend
yeah.
so much time opposite Harry Kim, particularly in like apparently Hollow Suites playing like Captain Proton or whatever, which is like
He's
the poor man's version of O'Brien and Bashir doing historical battles or whatever.
Tom Tom and Harry are a double act who work best together, and you notice who is carrying that double act when they're separated. For sure.
Yeah, no,
Um
definitely.
But yeah, back on the ship with Tom and Bellanah, that the relationship fight is starting to bubble up, and Tom basically just puts the ship into a complete dead stop and goes, "It's clear there's a problem. I don't want you to think I'm more invested in the race than I am our relationship. Let's talk this out." Um, and Balana, that points out a few times, like, well, I never asked you to give up this race. I never asked you to give up anything you're passionate about. And Tom responds, the only thing I'm passionate about is being the person you're in love with. Like, just because I have things that I get passionate and overexcited about, and I get a little too excited and like forget the rest of my life around, any of those things I will just stop on a heartbeat if it clicks in my head that I've upset you. I'll stop that right away and work out what we can do about it. And I think it does a lot to sell like look, this is someone who might get latched onto a hyperfixation, but he's never intentionally doing it in a way where like he knows he's got these tendencies and he will happily stop what he's doing if he realizes it's hurting her.
Yeah, I do think that kind of bit needed a bit more work to
Yeah.
get to it. But I think once we, and I think the writing was a bit woolly. I do think the bit where he's like the only thing I'm passionate about is you being in love with me. Is a little bit,
It's a little cheesy. I think it works better
yeah.
in the context of the full seasons, where you've had a few more
Mm.
opportunities to build up to this moment rather than this one episode having to carry the whole moment.
Yeah, and I'm coming in this really
Yeah.
cold, having not seen the rest of their relationship. For all I know, they
Yeah.
are similarly insufferable for the seasons before that, right? And we do see it later that he's kind of being a bit weird with like the smushy stuff. But yeah, like it's a nice gesture,
Yeah.
right? The big issue here has been they want to spend time together. The race has gotten in the way of that, even though she's insinuated herself into the race, and he's like, this doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like this matters to the 500 people on the ship, but whatever. I will just park
And
and we can smash a
yeah.
bit or whatever.
And,
And
and I appreciate that he acknowledges like look, not that this excuses why I don't talk to you about my feelings more, but like I can tell you the misinterpretation I made that made me think you didn't want that, which is like you've got this tough Klingon exterior. You didn't give me signs that suggested you wanted me to be more, feelingsy and mushy, but like now I know I was misunderstanding that. Sure, what can I do to better fulfill that bit of the relationship that's been lacking? Like he's very quick to pivot how he addresses the relationship upon realizing like, oh, I've misunderstood this. Let me address that. Let me do more of the thing that I didn't realize was missing from this.
yeah, I think if you take out him being a little bit wanky in the beginning,
Yeah.
he's handled this relationship and the issues that have arisen in it really well. I think he's handled Belana really well, and
Hmm.
her emotions that do need addressing. He says very early on, obviously, I should have realized, I should have remembered
Yeah.
before. So I will drop out. Yeah, he adds oh, it's so important. But then, we get to this point and he's immediately like, you know what? No, this is clearly
Yeah.
bubbling over.
And
It
to be
doesn't matter that we're in
yeah.
the middle. We could park this, right? I
Yeah.
could say to you, look, we are 5 minutes away from the end of this race. Just give me a second and we will
Yeah.
have this conversation.
And
And that would be a perfectly
hmm,
reasonable thing to. But he says, no, I'm parking it. We're sorting it out now
yeah.
because this is what
And
matters. And I like that.
and
I think that's really solid.
And one of the things we didn't point out earlier, but I do think, like, again, makes me a little more willing to be lenient on Tom, is one of the things Balana points out in that conversation with Neelix is, um, Tom doesn't realize quite how much work she put into getting that holodeck weekend. Like, she freely admits he doesn't realize because she hasn't told him like, oh, this is not just we'll have a nice weekend together. It's I've spent several days calling in favors to make this thing happen. Because he suggests like, well, this race is only happening this weekend. We could spend a weekend together another time. Not knowing how much work went into setting that weekend up, I think it is fair to a degree for him to go. It I fucked up by double booking this weekend, but as far as I know, we can just reschedule that time together. He doesn't know, oh, you put in all this work that I'm undervaluing because I didn't know it happened. So like there is some reasons to give him some benefit there, but yeah, as soon as he realizes like, oh, I fucked up and this has upset you more than I was aware it had, I will make a sacrifice in this moment to make it clear I'm taking my fuck up seriously.
I would be very interested if in previous, kind of explorations of this relationship, there was ever any hint that he viewed time they spent together at work as meaningful as personal time, and that she doesn't have, because I do wonder whether that's
Yeah.
part of it, that like he's like, we spend time together all the time,
Yeah.
and
I
so we can have a bit of alone
yeah.
time whenever, and she's like, no, I really needed this specific personal
Yeah.
time with just us
I
that
100%
was
think
away from work. Yeah.
that's part of it. I think that Tom is a very work-oriented person, and like doing an activity is time well spent, and if someone is present while he's doing that activity, that is time spent together. Even if
Right,
that
because like
activity is work. Whereas I think Bellanah
yeah,
is someone who wants to have that separation of work and social life that is just not what Tom defaults to.
because all their conversations in this
Yeah,
episode are at work, right? He finds her in engineering while she's at work, and they have this
yeah,
little tiff, and then they're talking during the race, which is fundamentally a work event.
yeah,
So I do kind of, and then by the end of it, they're having personal time away from the ship, kind of mandated alone time, as it were. So I do wonder whether that's a dynamic that appears before, or that's kind of what we're supposed to be taking from part of this as a bit
yeah,
of subtext, is that
yeah. I
they
think
need that personal time. Yeah.
I think that is deliberate. And like Bellanah does say something a little bit in passing to that effect in this episode. She points out like, where is it? You never stop to rest is one of the complaints she throws at Tom. Is that like you are just a go 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 kind of person, and to you that is time spent together. To me, we need to slow down and be at rest for that to feel like we spent that time together.
Well, I suppose there's the contrast of what they're doing as well, right? So he's organizing a race,
Yeah,
and she's saying we're going to go to somewhere that's even more like relaxed and super cool than Riser, which is like the sex capital of the universe, or whatever. So like they're even organizing completely different
yeah,
fun activities. That one is him just going really fast, like literally,
yeah,
it's not even subtle, and the other one is her going, "We're going to go really, really slow for a whole
yeah.
weekend."
And and it is shown earlier in Voyager that like both of them can enjoy the other side of that dynamic. Tom has definitely shown at points like being able to just enjoy taking a proper break from work and just doing nothing for a bit of time. Balana is shown to have
Well,
that
he
sort
was
of.
a he was a lizard for a bit, right?
He was a lizard for a bit,
I
yeah.
mean, like that's pretty slow.
And like Balana is shown to also have that streak of like get on a project and really focus in on it. And I think it's very easy for them, the two of them, to go, oh, you enjoy doing the thing I do, and not remember that they need to meet the other person's need. Like they need to do a little of each other's thing sometimes.
I think it is to this episode's credit that we are talking this much about this relationship
Yeah,
and picking out so many things that could point to the various actual conflicts outside of these two people just don't talk to each other.
yeah.
I,
It is way too easy to just say this is a bad couple who don't talk and shouldn't be together. It's like no, there's a lot of nuance going on in this episode, and I think it is for it's. Them sorting this relationship out doesn't make me go, okay, well they're going to be butting heads again 2 episodes from now anyway. It feels like a proper. This relationship has crossed a moment and has understood something that's been a barrier in it up to this point.
that said, I'm not sure everything I've seen is like the basis of a healthy
Oh
marriage.
no, I agree. Yeah,
And one of the symptoms of that, I would add, is Tom Paris reading Morse code like he's reading prose, like he's just running his finger along it and going, the ion distributor rigged. And he's like, what does that mean? It just feels a bit,
yeah,
but yeah. So like they're having that conversation, and Harry Kim's, I guess, sending a message because he's worked
yeah,
out what that this lady doesn't want to get to the finish line because the ship's going to blow up,
yeah.
and then they have to fly into a big cloud to get rid of the warp
The
core.
ship's going to explode and kill everyone unless we eject the warp core in this pretty little cloud, and then everything will
Yeah,
be safe. But also, so Tom Paris at this point proposes to Balana. I do love how many times Balana does not answer this because that's very reasonable. There are much bigger things to be thinking about. It's like, yeah, well, will you marry me? We're trying to eject a warp core into the
yeah.
nebula right now, Tom. Okay, we did it. We survived. Yeah, well, you haven't answered my question yet, though. Sorry, what question? About the marriage. I thought you were asking that because we were going to die. I'm still asking it. You gonna marry me? Hurry up, go, do it.
And and then they get married immediately. Like it's not we
Yes.
are engaged. The next scene is literally Janeway explaining that they're on holiday and they're in the shuttle, which has "just married" written on the back of it.
It is ridiculous.
Though to be fair, I do think there's a lot of points where you
Yeah.
could say, "Oh, things happen very quickly in this
Yeah.
episode," and it's just because it's a 40-minute episode.
I do think a fast marriage makes sense in the context of literally everyone that you would want to invite to this wedding and could invite to the wedding are on the one ship. And
we just nearly died,
yeah,
and that could happen again. So
there's yeah, there's no hope of you getting home, it feels like at this point, so why not do this and have your excuse to take your 2 weeks off and your holodeck time? It's a
I
nice
don't even
excuse for
remember
them to
how
have their time off.
I don't even remember how they do get home. Is it like some sort of space magic again? Like, do they
Uh,
build to it over the seventh
they
season, or
do
is it
build
just
to it
like
over the final season.
okay,
They
no, that's
manage,
fine.
yeah, the short version. They manage to make contact with Earth for a bit. They find a way home, but also the Borg's a problem. Oh, do we risk going home? But we're risking the Borg following us. Is the like whole thing toward the end?
Okay, well, we'll get there.
We'll
We'll get
get
there
there.
eventually.
But yeah, for an episode that was like really, I remembered none of it. I remembered nothing going into this. I quite enjoyed this episode. It is not an episode I would point to and go, "This is why I like Voyager." It doesn't feel like a Voyager episode, but there was a good amount to like dig your teeth into in it.
Yeah, like, completely random, kind of fun. I thought it was really well structured. I think it was well paced. Um, Again, like I know nothing about Voyager, so I'm watching this in complete isolation. It was fun. I
Yeah,
had a fun little time, and I'm completely shocked that was in the beginning of the 7th season of Voyager. They had time for like a little escapade.
yeah, just a silly little romp. Well, given that we've talked for over an hour on this one, didn't know we were going to get this much out of this one. Shall we spin the wheel and work out where we're
It's
going
all,
next?
it's all the Harry Kim of it. I just can't help myself.
Right, it's impossible to stop. Okay, let's
Yeah,
swap
like
up.
if we could spin the one where he apparently in love with a dead person, I'd be really interested in that one. So
I'll look
wheel.
if we get Voyager again, I'll cross my fingers for Harry Kim and a dead body. Let's move over to the wheel. Right, let's spin the wheel. Oh, the wheel's trying. It's trying.
Oh, there's just too many too many entries. Oh, God,
TNG again. Do we
Up
stick with
the long
TNG or
ladder.
do we respin and try and get a different series?
No, I think we just stick with what the wheel tells us.
This
The wheel
is
has not steered us
it's not
far
steered
wrong.
us too wrong.
Yeah.
So let's have a look. Up
And
the
at least
long
it's
ladder.
season 2.
Yeah. Okay, up the long
The weirdest
ladder.
TNG episode. Oh no.
Yeah, okay. Which one is this? What are we dealing with? Oh, there are some there's some interesting characters in the
they've got some hay on the
yeah, is this like American
transporter
immigrants on the transporter pad? Give me what's a one sentence summary? The USS the Enterprise discovers 2 threatened colonies which must cooperate to survive.
Polanski's in this. Oh, this is when Gates McFadden like fucked off for a season, wasn't it?
I don't know. This is another one that is
Yeah.
not ringing any alarm bells. There's a little box here that says destroying the clones.
Send in the clones.
Granger sees the
I
Bringoldi Society.
I have a very, very vague memory of this one, but I don't know what it's about. I don't know whether there's so many episodes which are the Enterprise discovers 2 colonies that need to cooperate.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Oh, yeah, I do vaguely remember this one.
I sure don't.
It is a weird episode. It's a very weird episode.
Oh, sorry. I'm reading one description of it. A lost colony is as technologically advanced as 1840s Irish farmers, with all the stereotypes that come along with it.
Yep.
Um. Oh, Riker murders a Riker clone. Okay. Yeah, this will be interesting.
One of many Riker clones. Like
Okay, well we've spun a wheel. We'll be back in a couple of weeks with some more TNG, and then maybe one day we'll get a different series of Star Trek. But not this day. Only when I offline spin the wheel can I get other series of Star Trek. As soon as we're on recording, it's like, oh no, we've got 3 seasons. That's the only playground.
Yeah, but you say that, and then like the next one we get is going to be Enterprise again.
Oh god. Look, I would take the Star Trek the animated series over that.
Oh, don't be too. Like Enterprise is, yeah, it's pretty bad actually.
Well,
Like,
well,
it's pretty rough.
look, I would relish a late season Enterprise episode. I need something to motivate me to get back to watching it. Um, Thank you very much, everyone, for watching another episode of Wegba. We'll be back with another for you in a couple of weeks. Goodbye.
Bye.